Hi, good morning, and welcome to this podcast, Laughter Lab. I'm so happy to have you here, Bodo. So, first of all, I know you and I know all the amazing things that you do, but can you tell people out there what is it that you do?
Thanks, Stefano. I'm Bodo Heiliger. I'm currently the head of school at the International School of Portland. It's a pre-K through fifth grade language immersion school in the heart of downtown Portland, where we teach in Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish. So,
I know, that's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
Here in this podcast, we chat about laughter and humor and playfulness, in life and in the workplace. So, my first question for you is, was there anybody in your family when you were growing up that you remember as a funny person?
The funny person is always an uncle, right?
Generally speaking, yes.
My parents were pretty well, they were fun-loving, but they were German. So pretty clear and direct at times, but I had a pretty good childhood. But I'd say my uncle Axel was the silly uncle. And then my cousin Eric, where it was also that silly cousin. He was like 10 years older than me, so he knew a lot more and would teach me all the good words and silly words and things like that. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I'm generally speaking, yeah, there is always an uncle in the family, right? That is the funny person. And it's funny because we remember, I guess, because of that, because of the humor that help us remember those folks. So what is the role of laughter and humor? What does that role play in your life?
Hmm. Um, I like to think I'm a pretty joyful person. I'm a pretty silly person. I try to see the positive side of even the most challenging situations. I think it brings levity to a situation. I think oftentimes we get stuck in the here and now and really focused and very myopic, and sometimes a good chuckle definitely helps. I think there's definitely research out there about um, the importance of laughter and the importance of joyfulness. And like joy brings a sense of belonging, a sense of inclusiveness. So I'm not, I think it can be learned. But I think to make people laugh can be learned, I think. But I also think that laughter doesn't have to be learned, right? So it's something that we do, and it's really about developing those relationships so it's authentic laughter and joyfulness. So
Yes, I love that. It can be learned, yes, and it cannot. I totally agree with you because generally speaking, laughter is something that we all know how to do, generally speaking. But surely you can learn maybe skills about how to be, a funnier person or how to like incorporate more levity in your life and your workplace,
sure.
which basically leads to my next question,
Mhm.
which is what what is the impact? What do you think the laughter and humor, how that can impact work, and the work culture and the workplace.
I mean, there's I think there's a lot of research behind it, but I think overall people like to laugh, right? So I remember as a classroom teacher, I'd force kids to come up with like the dumb dad jokes or just terrible jokes. And regardless of the joke, like everyone was forced to laugh. Like you had to laugh. Like you couldn't roll your eyes. You couldn't be like, that's not funny. You just had to laugh. And at some point, like everyone would just start laughing authentically, even though like it had nothing to do with the joke. And there was something like, it releases, I don't know, endorphins, I don't know, dopamine, whatever those things are that make you feel good. And we want to feel good. And then at times, um, laughter may not be the right thing, but
Mm.
um, playfulness and joyfulness is also learned. Like I think about in schools, like um, I talk to my kids, I'm like, read the room, not the right time, right? Like a fart joke in the middle of something is not always appropriate. So like, just trying to figure out it's a beautiful, like, how do you read the room? Like how can you be a comedian and um things might be too soon sometimes.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think I'm not sure that answers your question, but kind of my
Oh yes, it surely does, and especially the fact I love that you force kids to laugh. That I think that's a great strategy. I'm going to steal that from you with like trainings, because we all know that laughter is contagious,
yeah.
right? So if somebody starts laughing,
Mhm.
it's really difficult to like stop. And as you said, sometimes it's like that fake laughter that eventually becomes real.
Mhm.
It's very interesting what
Right.
happens. And apparently, you mentioned studies. I'm a big fan of studies, and they say that a lot of times, even in comedy, we don't laugh at the joke itself, but we laugh mainly at the sound of laughter, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because it's generally speaking, is a shared experience. It's something that we do together with
Yeah.
other adults. Kids, they can laugh. They don't need an intellectual reason. They don't necessarily need jokes, or they can laugh by themselves. When it comes to
Mhm.
adults, then things change drastically, unfortunately. But
Mhm.
have you ever experienced, like, maybe at work or with other colleagues, or in other situation, where there was some sort of like resistance, or more people felt like, oh, this is not the right place, or we are working hard here, and there is no space for laughter, or there is no space for humor. Have you ever
Mhm.
encountered that, or like people that maybe have this, in my opinion, is kind of like a misconcept of like, oh, because we work hard and we got to be serious, so there is no space for laughter. Have you ever felt like that in a workplace?
Um, I think I felt like that in situations that were tense, I think at times, right? So like, we're dealing with a difficult situation um that I don't sense it's the right time, but again, like I think it's reading the room too. So I think um one of my expectations as a leader is that we want to create a joyful culture, and that's not always easy. And joyful may not be just laughter. I think it's also like meaning and purpose and like engagement as well. And so joyfulness is also smiles. And
Mm,
I feel as I teach my kids, like you smile at people when you see them, right? Like there's nothing more special than a smile and a laugh, right? But I don't know about resistance. I think I've been in situations where the joke didn't bring laughter, right?
mm,
So like I think laughter is really important,
mhm,
and laughter is a result often, except if you're forcing a kid to laugh. Laughter's like a, a result of something funny at the right time. Um, and maybe not the right time sometimes, like there's times when like inappropriateness is totally appropriate. Um, but I haven't been in a situation where I felt like I overstepped or like it wouldn't be appropriate. I think it's understanding when and where, maybe.
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, totally. And yes, I feel like laughter and humor, they do go together, but they're not necessarily the same thing, right? Because
Mhm.
it's, yes, as you mentioned, laughter, maybe it's a product of the humor, right? You
Mhm.
tell a joke, and then eventually you laugh about it, right?
Right.
And then and so it kind of works in a way, because humor is more personal, cultural. Something that is funny for me, maybe it's not for you, or the
Mhm.
other way around, right? But then
Sure.
laughter, it's something that can bring us all together and kind of like help us unite. And have you ever been in a situation where like you felt like playfulness, or humor, or laughter helped you overcome like a challenge, in at work or in life?
I think it always helps. I don't know if I can find a specific example.
Or maybe like you felt like you helped somebody through that,
Mhm.
or or you were helped,
Yeah, I think um, you know, I might go to like, I'm looking outside right now. It's like downtown Portland, right? So like, there's a lot of people experiencing challenges in downtown, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think humor and laughter and playfulness and joyfulness go into this idea of um, we want to approach people and think about people in a joyful way, right? So like, how do we engage with people in a
Mhm.
way that is, it may not be funny, but it's like um I'd say joyful. Like when I come and interact with you, I'm going to be a happy person, right?
Mm.
I'm going to present myself in a way that makes you feel like I'm a big guy, right? So like I can be very intimidating to many people who don't know me. So like understanding presence and playfulness is really important. So smiles and just like your disposition and the way you talk.
Mm.
Um, um, and you know, like small little jokes here and there to like create that levity in these situations where people might be experiencing homelessness or might be struggling with something, to treat them like a human being. And I think human beings require a sense of joyfulness. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, joyfulness and playfulness. Um and at times you have to be serious, but the majority of human beings are kind people,
Mhm.
who want to experience kindness and joy, right? So yeah, I don't know. I can't think of a situation where like, well, I'll say
Mm.
kids are probably the easiest way to get to like turn around. You know, you get like a 6, 7, 8 year old who's really struggling with something, and you just like tell the dumbest joke ever, and then they're like, "What?" And then like totally like shifts their mindset to like, "You're a ridiculous human being." And I forgot all about this thing that I was upset about, but wasn't that important, you know. So
Mm.
I think there's often times where you're able to kind of shift um,
Mm.
the mindset of someone, and that comes to getting to know them and knowing what they need at that time.
Mm.
So I think just being ridiculous at times, like, you know, Stefano, I know you well enough. Like you'll throw a red nose on, you know, you do silly, magical, cloudy stuff that's adorable, but it's
Yeah.
ridiculous too at times, right?
Mm.
So like, but
Yes.
it brings humor and joy into people's lives. So if you can do
Mhm.
that in some ways, it's great. So I don't know.
Yes, and I mean, I love this because, they say kids. I read a lot of studies and things. I studied laughter, happiness in general, and they say kids can laugh up to 200 times a day, especially little kids, right? And then adults, the things go, it changed drastically. It goes
Hmm.
up to like 13, 50 times like a day. So I'm like, how do we end up with like 185 laughter short? What happens?
Cool. I think school happened. I think that's one of the issues with school, right? Like we take things too seriously. We take life too seriously sometimes.
Yes, and I love the thing that you said, about a child that they have this ability to like switch so easily. Like maybe you say a silly thing, or you make a funny joke, and then boom, all of a sudden
Mhm.
their mindset switches, right? All of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like, oh, whatever. I was in this bad situation. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm laughing. I think it would be great if adults, could adopt that kind of
Mhm.
mindset. Maybe something happens, I don't know what it is, but like we grow up, and then we have all those blocks, or
Mhm.
things that we like, oh, I don't know, it's harder, right, to like
Yeah.
um, get into that mindset. And I think also maybe because it's very courageous, right? It's brave, to like be silly, and not necessarily do the things that I do, but like, have that moment of like, oh, I'm being maybe ridiculous, right, in
Mhm.
front of other
Yeah.
people. And I mean, I think that takes courage, right? Not everybody is willing to do that or be there, right?
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know. What is your, I don't know, what is your take on that? Like maybe what I'm trying to say is like, maybe sometimes in society we need to be a certain way, or we need to behave a certain way, we need to look a certain way, that we can't really allow ourselves to be, maybe just be, or maybe just be ourselves. If we are, a silly person, maybe we need to, you know cover that up, or I don't know, kind of
Mhm.
mask it in a way that like, oh, because my boss requires me to be
Mhm.
very serious, or I work in a place, maybe a corporation, that is like, oh, that is not allowed, right? So I don't know, it's interesting, right? What do you think of
Yeah.
that?
You know, I don't know. I think it's probably social stigma, right? Like there's this vulnerability of being silly. And um, I also think there might be some guilt associated with like joyfulness. I think, you know, the times that we're in right now, I think some people feel very stressed out, right? And
Mhm.
to see like people laughing and having a good time when all this other stuff's happening, may not be appropriate, or people might feel like I have to be serious and constantly do things,
Mhm.
to because, you know, maybe I'm not being empathetic enough. You know, I don't know. I think there's so much. Um, I don't know. That's just a guess of mine. You know, like I think I always there's a my one of my favorite quotes, is from John Dewey. He's like the guru of inquiry based education, years back, went to Columbia University, and he said to be playful and serious at the same time is possible, and it defines the ideal mental condition. And I think like that's how I've tried to live my life. Like I want to be playfully serious and seriously playful. But I also think that people are stressed. There's anxiety. There's all these things happening. And maybe it's because of the stress that they're not laughing, or because they're worried that they shouldn't be laughing and having a good time. You know, they need to be doing more to fix whatever's wrong in the world. I don't know. I think there's a lot of anxiety out there, and I don't think being kind to oneself and being silly should ever be lost in any of that conversation. So,
Yes.
I don't know. That's my.
Yeah. I love that quote. I think it's a great quote, and I don't know, and I think sometimes maybe that's kind of like the secret. Like I can take works very seriously, but not myself, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, what I mean, it's like what I do. It is very serious. I want to deliver something that is quality. That is, you know, I don't know. I'm doing my job because I believe in it, right? But maybe I don't have to. Oops, glitched. Anyway, technology. But you know, maybe myself, I don't have to take myself seriously all the time. And maybe that's, you know, what we do a lot, I think, lately. You know, we take ourselves so seriously and we don't allow ourselves to be, I don't know, more playful, you know, like kids. So say I'm one of those, you know, I'm a manager, I'm a CEO, I run this huge company, and I'm a very serious person, and I want to bring more joyfulness, more happiness, more playfulness, more humor, laughter in my workplace. Do you have any suggestions for me?
Get to know your employees, know what they like, and allow them to get to know each other. I think the more people know each other, the better. And yeah, I think there's engagements and there's things to do that are fun and silly, and creating opportunities to be vulnerable and silly. I think that's important, and not to be like. I like the quote also, like there's comfort in discomfort, right? So like we constantly, like from my perspective as a leader, I want my teachers, I want people to feel a little discomfort in what they're doing, because that means that they might be trying something new, or they might be meeting something new. Like if you're stuck in comfort zone, that's not good. You just become stagnant, and then it's always the same, right? So like, how are we creating some discomfort within the comfort of like a safe space to be able to make those challenging, to make those, like, you know, let's try something new. Let's be silly with the students. Let's all just laugh at once, right? Like what's the worst thing that happens, right?
Right.
Like kids are laughing for 5 minutes and one might get a little bit too laughy. Who cares, right? Like there's opportunity, like to think outside the box, and allow people to take risks more than anything, and then celebrate those risks as an institution. But I think getting to know people is really important. Being present, being in their spaces. As a school, it's easier because you go to classrooms, you're with people, you can see the laughter, and you can walk into classrooms too, and you're like, you walk into a classroom and it might look exactly the same, but it feels different. Sometimes you walk in, you're like, ooh, this feels nice. And sometimes you walk in, you're like, ooh, something happened here, you know? So I think there's real that sense of, I don't know, joy, I guess you can feel it. So be present in the places where you're not feeling it more often than you are in the places that you are feeling it, so that you can bring some joy into those spaces and figure out, you know, what's going on. And usually it is all relationship based, right? So most interactions are because of most like feelings of insecurity or sadness, or because of something that happened with someone else. You know, there's something going on where things aren't going right, and trying to find a way to bridge that gap. But I guess listening and ultimately getting to know your employees. Yeah.
Yes. Which is ultimately, you know, real human connection, right?
Totally.
But it's this is so important, like, you know, but the ability to like the listen and feel that, right? Like you said, sometimes you might walk into a space, a classroom, and you feel like, oh yeah, this is it's nice. It feels good, and then you walk into a different place, like, oh, I don't know. But also, I think maybe not everyone has that ability, you know, the capacity to like, can you feel that? Can you, you know, are you aware of what is happening? Interesting. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been very inspiring, and yeah,
Fun times.
Yes. Thank you
Yeah,
again for, chatting with me.
of course. Anytime, Stefano. Thanks for always laughing.
I'll try my best.
All right.
All
See ya.
right. Okay. Take care.